Well, let's be clear. None of the 36 state governors have anything against judicial autonomy. I think the Nigerian Governors Forum has made that very clear.
And your governor is
in our
chairman.
state, absolutely. In Ekiti State, we believe that an independent judiciary is not just a law and justice issue. It also goes to the root of our economy. So there is no dispute about judicial autonomy. Now, where we need to have further conversation is what does it really mean? A number of people have said, well, judicial autonomy means better conditions of service for judicial officers. It means access to justice for the poor. That may not be necessarily true. More money for the judiciary does not mean better conditions of service for judicial officers. And it certainly does not mean an improvement in the administration of the justice system. But having said so, there's an agreement. We need to ensure that we have a judiciary that is well endowed to protect the interests of our citizens. So there's no dispute on that.
How about it means give the judiciary its funds directly?
Well, that is the conversation going on now. There's a number of wrong assumptions, if you like. People also forget that it's not as if every month a fixed amount comes to the states. That is not true. Regrettably, the level of endowment of many states differ. So you have some that are well endowed, you have some that are struggling. There are issues of debt that needs to be sorted out. Even now, a colleague of mine reminded me that the CBN governor has even now threatened to ask states to repay the loan that they all got. That will have implications on current discussions on judicial autonomy. So I think what is important, we are now in a forward-looking mode. We recognize that judicial autonomy is important. What it actually means is now being clarified.
There's also this controversy over who is constitutionally responsible for the funding of the judiciary. I've heard some lawyers say that it should be the federal government. Others believe that it's a shared responsibility between the federal and the state government. What do you think?
Well, I think how it works now, and there should be no, personally, I don't see any complications in how it works now. Let the federal government pay salaries and allowance and what have you, and let the states work on capital. Is what is happening anyway, and it seems to me that is what is going to continue to happen, even when we have this judicial autonomy. Because the amount that is being discussed in terms of what exactly comes to judiciary, I'm not even sure that if we get to that stage, you get to a stage where all the judiciary will get from states is just whatever is allocated to them as a fallout from this conversation on judicial autonomy. State governments will have to continue to support the judiciary, even if we get to that position, when we get to that position of giving the judiciary what is due to them.
So if there's clarity about states saying that they're not against judicial autonomy, why are they against Executive Order Number 10 as put in place by the President?
That is where we differ. Now, we have federalism. Our Constitution clearly prescribes we have a federal system of government. To have an order that directs the Accountant General to deduct at source monies coming to the state, in our view, largely infringes on our federal nature. States are states. This is where the issues are. We have cooperative federalism, but even cooperative federalism should not get to the stage where we now have, federal government now saying, okay, I'm going to tell you how to spend your money in the states, and where we don't agree, I'll take the money and do what I think you should do with the money. That would be an abuse of our federal system.
Last week on this show, I had one of your colleagues, Dr. Muiz Banire, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, on the show. He blamed the state's attorney general for the stalemate that we are seeing with the Judicial strike. According to him, they are the chief law officers of the state, and they should be advising their state governors to obey the Constitution, just to obey the Constitution. And that where the attorneys general are not doing this, if the governors fail to listen, the attorney general should resign. If a state governor changes like 3, 4, 5 attorneys general, then the state governor would sit up. But that where the attorneys general do not advise their state governors to obey the constitution, then the NBA should move against such an attorney general with a view to getting him disbarred and sanctioned. Do you think that's a fair conclusion?
It's an academic conversation. For the purpose of the present judicial strike, I don't know one single attorney general in this country that is not 100% in support of judicial autonomy. Now, I have said that where we have taken the conversation further is in the area of what it means in concrete terms. It certainly does not mean improvement in the conditions of service of judicial officers. When people say the federal government has even done what they should do and it's just left for the states, that may not be actually correct. Don't forget that salaries and allowances of public officers have been revised more than 10 times in this country. The salaries of judicial officers probably once or twice. So some of our judges today even suffer some of the worst conditions of public service. So for a number of us, what we are saying is that rather than just have this limited conversation, this is an opportunity to have a broad conversation. When we talk about judicial autonomy, what does it mean? Does it include looking at the salaries and allowance of judicial officers? Does it across board, whether a state high court, court of appeal, Supreme Court? There is a misconception that when you get to the court of appeal or Supreme Court, it's fine, life becomes easier. That may not exactly be true. Some of the court of appeal justices, our Supreme Court justices in this country, struggle with their conditions of service. So in my view, we think that, rather than have a limited conversation about the naira and kobo, we should have a broader conversation. What can we have, when we talk about, this is an opportunity to reform the entire system. Yes, let us strengthen the infrastructure of the judiciary, but at the same time, let us also improve the conditions of service of judicial officers. What is the point? If you have first-class courts and they drive in Prado Jeeps or the luxurious cars and they live in, well-furnished government houses, if they don't, at the end of the day, have appropriate conditions of service, if they cannot confidently look forward to retirement, what are we talking about judicial autonomy?
Who do you think should be driving these conversations?
The federal government. At the level of the states, we are driving it. Now, in fairness to the federal government, there was a committee that was established, the Apata Committee on the Review of Judicial Salaries and Allowances.
Solicitor General
of the Federation. I was a member of that committee, and we made far-reaching recommendations. Regrettably, that report is also yet to be implemented.
Let's move away from issues of the strike to some other topical issue. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, recently said kidnapping and other crimes committed by bandits can only be tried by the state attorney generals, and he blamed them for the slow prosecution of these crimes. What is your reaction? Are they federal offenses or state offenses?
Well, it doesn't matter. For as far as the average Nigerian is concerned, what they require, what we desire, is that persons who commit offenses should be promptly arrested, investigated, prosecuted speedily. The reason kidnapping, unfortunately, and all sorts of grievous crime have to, regrettably, take a cue from the already existing crimes, because we have a criminal justice system that is still struggling. For years, persons like me across board have campaigned that, we really need to look at this, our criminal justice system, and ask ourselves whether it's working in the interest of justice. Now, we have to ask ourselves whether it's working in the interest of security, our collective security. Do we have issues with police? Absolutely. Do we have issues with police investigation? Absolutely. Do we have problems with this process itself, from arraignment to prosecution to conviction? Absolutely. So we are yet to get to that stage again where we've not yet had a broad conversation. What kind of criminal justice system do we really want for this country? And we are not there yet.
The courts are on strike, but what is the Ministry of Justice doing now? I heard some lawyers say that with the congestion in our prisons, this is the time for magistrates, state attorneys general, the CJs, to be visiting the courts with a view to reducing the awaiting trial?
In Ekiti State, we have commenced that process. The Chief Judge of the state has graciously nominated a couple of magistrates to visit police stations. The purpose of that is to decongest police cells. So that is already happening, and I know that in a number of states that is also happening. What we also need to do, which is something we all agree now, is to refocus our attention on virtual court hearings. Now, gladly, the Supreme Court has set the tone by delivering its judgments now virtually. I understand that the Court of Appeal sitting at Ekiti has also given an indication that from next week it will deliver a number of judgments virtually. So we need to learn from that. So the conversation we are going to be having in Ekiti certainly is to ask our judges to look at what is happening in the Supreme Court, to look at what is happening in the Court of Appeal, and see whether this is not the time to start, following suit.
I also wanted to talk about the case that the Ekiti state government instituted against the police, discrimination, the Inspector General. I think this is the first time that we're having a state sue an Inspector General of Police over discrimination in the police force against the female officers. What progress? I know the courts are on strike, but what progress have we recorded?
Well, first I was amused, if you like, for want of a better word, at the national interest that suit generated. People forget that the role of the Attorney General is not simply to defend government. An important role, and if you ask me, the most important role of the Attorney General is to protect citizens' rights. So in this case, there is nothing that we did in terms of enforcing the rights of this police woman officer that, for me, was out of the ordinary or strange. Where we are now, we filed, the matter came up for hearing in the Federal Court at Ekiti. All papers have gone in. Matter had been adjourned till sometime during the Judicial strike. We hope that as soon as the court resumes, we are going to have a full hearing of the matter.
It's instructive what you say about gender equality, because a few weeks ago, or was it last week, I was also looking at your tweets online about one rape a day in Ekiti State and how widespread and prevalent the crime is. And then some people saying that it might hurt the chances of the party if you move against certain people. Tell us about that.
Well, we, like any other state, we are dealing with a tragic upsurge in sexual violence against women. We have before now introduced a number of measures which people have called very harsh, some radical, including ensuring that persons who are convicted for any form of sexual offense does not, number one, benefit from Mr. Governor's powers of prerogative of mercy. We have the name and shame from once a conviction verdict is returned. We immediately upload the details of the offender on all government platforms. In the case of offenders who defile minors, in addition to working with the hospital to ensure that the person gets a psychiatric evaluation, we will also make sure that we inform the person's community about what the offender has done. We need a collective response. We have embarked on massive state awareness. The wife of the governor, indeed, at this time is going around all our local governments trying to educate the people. But the purpose of that communication is people should know that we need, if we want to reverse this, we need everybody to be on board. So that is why we did that.